active shooting situations are tense, high-pressure situations as it is. To have people remain targets for minutes, and when we talk about minutes, that's a long time, folks, when there's something going on. Minutes upon minutes of just being unprotected. I trade the problem of law enforcement identifying who's who for the problem of getting there when the shooting will be over if someone there is trained in using their firearm. But what bothers me beyond all this talk about the Second Amendment and gun control is the way the mainstream media has responded to this and the hypocrisy of both the mainstream media and Hollywood. And this is what I talked about with Dan Gaynor from Newsbusters, the vice president of business and culture. We had a lot of discussion about a lot of articles that came out this week in the wake of the UCC shooting, things that they measured quantitatively and qualitatively on the news, on the main networks, and also from Hollywood. Some of these things are going to surprise you folks. I want you to listen to this interview with Dan Gaynor from Newsbusters, all about the hypocrisy of the mainstream media when it comes to shooting events like what happened in Oregon. Take a listen to this. Gene Baradelli behind Enemy Lines here, and on the line with me right now, and we just had a funny conversation about spam calling and all different things. I almost got hung up on. Dan Gaynor, Vice President of Business and Culture for Media Research Center, MRC. Thanks for coming on the show, pal.
Oh, I'm happy to. Sorry about that. This is what happens when you work from home. You get so tired of the bogus callers that you don't accept the real ones.
It's absolutely no problem. Like I said, I'm used to getting hung up on. It's no big deal. But I do want to talk to you a few minutes while you have the time. Lots of great stories coming from Newsbusters this week, especially in the context of the UCC shooting in Oregon.
Yeah, this is every time there's a shooting, every time there's an incident like this, the media, whether it's news and entertainment, people try to line up around the block to take away your rights. And they want to blame, okay. I mean, if a guy went on a massive running down people spree, which does happen, in fact, not just drunk drivers, but I mean, people use their cars as weapons, that never makes news because the media don't want to take away your car, but they really want to take away your guns.
And as you point out on Newsbusters in several different articles, the media coverage feeds into this whole idea that the left is putting out, especially when it comes to who the shooter is and the motivation behind the shooting. And what I'm talking about is an article that came out this week from Christine Marsh about the number of times that religion and faith were mentioned in two different shootings, one in Chapel Hill and the other in Oregon, and how the media just totally buried the lead in the case of the Oregon shooting.
Yeah, if you go back to Chapel Hill, people may remember this. 9 people were shot in the Oregon shooting. Only 3 people shot in Chapel Hill. I mean, that's still a lot if if there are people you care about. But the 3 people shot in Chapel Hill were Muslims. And immediately the media moved into, it was a hate crime. Was it a hate crime? They kept saying that and saying that and saying that. So, and of course, they used the term Muslim or Islam a total of 36 times just in the first 3 nights. And then you fast forward to another incident, the Oregon shooting, where people were specifically asked, "Are you Christian?" And the media covered hardly at all. 3 times in the first 3 days. And this is not just come up with this story. This has been reported in New York Times, USA Today, Washington Post, LA Times. This is a big story, but it's hardly mentioned. So 12 times more reported in Chapel Hill, even though there were 3 times more people killed in Oregon.
Let's point out that the amount of coverage on the Oregon shooting was about triple the coverage on the major networks than it was for Chapel Hill, and yet the reference to religion or faith was about 1/3 less on triple the coverage.
Yeah, look, we know how this works. The major media have tried to set up Islam like it's David against the Christian Goliath. So every offense against Islam, it's one of the Islamic people are one of the 2 most protected groups in the major media. The other are LGBT people. Ironically, a group that not well treated in Muslim countries around the world. But they don't try to be logical in journalism. They just try to push an agenda. And the agenda here is, oh my gosh, Muslim lives matter. It doesn't matter what the circumstances. If someone went out and killed Muslims, that's a controversy. Someone kills Christians, oh, that's not big news.
Yeah, and we talk about this idea of hate crime. Doesn't every violent crime involve some form of hate one way or another? To be able to take a life or to attempt to take a life, you got to have some sort of hate in your heart, no matter what the derivation is. I never liked this idea of hate crime when it came to classifying crime. Like, so one person's value is greater than another person's value in their life because of who they are. If all lives matter equally, really the media shouldn't care which way it is, or they should care about everybody, one way or the other, not this half-assed method of what they're doing.
Yeah, I've never liked it. Smacks of the movie Minority Report, where you're trying to get in people's brains and figure out what they're doing. I care more about their actions. If somebody walks up to me on the street and punches me in the mouth, it doesn't matter what name they call me. It's the fact that they punched me in the mouth. If you go and burn a cross on my lawn, that's arson and threats and intimidation and everything else. You don't need to pile on hate crimes. I understand how it happened, but it gives the media an excuse to try to once more create a protected group. The Constitution is very clear that we're all supposed to be equal, not the whole Orwell where some are more equal than others. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Now, look, no one, this is my opinion, I think it's yours too, by everybody listening right now. No one should be hunted down and killed for their beliefs. I think that's a pretty easy standard to stick to. And if you do it, you're a murderer. Flat out. It doesn't matter whether you're a murderer, whether you killed a Christian or a Muslim or whatever. But the media clearly play favorites. They play favorites all the time, and they certainly do here.
Dan, you must learn how to segue when you're at MRC, because you mentioned Minority Report, and the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was another story out this week, talking about, again, in the context of the Oregon shooting, how the top 10 movies out right now have over 100 portrayals of gun violence. And so you got Hollywood on one side of their mouth saying, take away everybody's guns. And then on the other side of their mouths, showing shootings and gun violence all the time. It's the height of hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, you got celebrities out there like Julianne Moore, who you can find her in movies all over the place, holding the gun, shooting at people. I mean, it's just pretty easy. And that's fine. Liam Neeson, another word, he is not shy. He and Quentin Tarantino have shied away from this time. They've made their opinions pretty clear. So what we did, we decided to look at what are the movies that weekend, right after this shooting, what are the movies that are out popular right now? And I'll give credit where credit is due. The Martian. Not one incident of violence. It's the number one movie. Great for the people involved. No criticism at all. But then you go down the line, we got 334 incidents of violence, 39 dead, 121 incidents of gun violence. Maze Runner, the Scorch Trials, and I just saw the first Maze Runner movie the other day. I have not seen the new one, but that movie, it's got just an onslaught of violence against teens. I mean, that's the whole concept of the movie, where they're having violence done to them, violence against zombies, bombs, shootings, and suicide by gun. I mean, this is a teen movie. This is what they're seeing. You got the new Whitey Bulger movie, Black Mass. Tons of violence in that. Sicario, which even though Maze Runner, the Scorch Trials, outdid Sicario in overall violence, the whole concept of that movie has got violence like layered throughout with images of, in photos, bodies hanging, and just things that you don't necessarily see the violence of, but they're there everywhere. And this is what we're bombarding our citizens, our children with. And look, violence in movies has not only become so commonplace, but it's become very realistic. And I don't think most people are bothered by it. I think most people who are sane and rational can go see a movie or play a video game and not have it harm them in the least. But sane and rational people are also not going and shooting up schools. And so people who are already messed up in the head, maybe this helps desensitize them. Maybe it helps teach them. Maybe it gives them muscle memory when you're playing video games, or they'll watch a movie endlessly. This is a thing Hollywood doesn't want to talk about, and one of the biggest people involved in this is Quentin Tarantino, who puts out some of the most violent movies everywhere. He's got another movie keyed up for December, The Hateful Eight. I guarantee you've seen the previews of it. The previews are more violent than most movies.
It's like I said, the height of hypocrisy, and there is a desensitizing element to it. Since the advent of CGI, you've had hyper-realistic violence just becoming more and more pervasive. The shock value of it all is what Hollywood seems to think drives people to the movies. Whatever happened to just having a good story, violence in its place, instead of just, sensationalizing it for the sake of putting butts in the seats?
Well, I mean, and there were a couple, and that is perhaps one of the most hopeful things about our analysis is, movies like The Martian or Everest. They were high tech, extremely high tech movies, and not filled with violence. So maybe somebody somewhere is getting a clue at Hollywood, but clearly not enough. When you look at the movies that were violent, I mean, even the violence in the animated cartoon Transylvania Hotel 2, still a lot of violence in that, and I mean, little kids are going to that. Now, look, we saw people. The obvious response is we saw Bugs Bunny when we were kids, and yes, and that didn't mess us up. Yes, and that's great if that was the only thing there. But when when kids graduate from that movie now, they are graduating to Maze Runner, which is a teen movie and was the most violent movie we had.
Absolutely. Hunger Games, another one coming out soon. It is a big step up now for teens than it was, I don't want to say back in my day, because I like to think I'm not that old, but, still under 40. But, at the same time, it's a different world, it's a different culture. It's a different dynamic in the home as well. And I think that may be the piece that people are ignoring the most here. The breakdown of the family unit and the uptick and increase in the hyper-realism of violence in movies, the two combinations can't work well.
Well, no, you I think, hit the nail on the head. The whole idea of, we've changed family structures. The left has been dominant for more than 50 years in this country. They've managed to wreck the family, chip away at faith, expand government, really alter our society in some significant ways. And we see it particularly in the family. And that takes a toll on children. You keep looking, a lot of these shooters are products of broken homes. And that doesn't mean the parents necessarily did a bad job, but parents are human. They can only have so many hours in a day. The father in question here is like, how do you get that many guns? Well, maybe if you weren't completely absent from his life and hadn't seen him for 2 years, you might know. I'm sorry, but I think he deserves. He needs to do some soul searching here. What is his role in this? And certainly the mother. If you think your child is disturbed, then maybe you don't make weapons easily available. That seems basic. But a lot of these kids, the Sandy Hook shooter, he used to spend 12, 14, 16 hours a day playing first-person shooter sitting in his basement. At some point in time, that's, even if a child is adult, child's living at home, you got to parent that child.
Absolutely right. It's about filling the gaps the right way. Dan, we're just about out of time here. I know you got a lot of things you need to do. Newsbusters.org. I'm there every day. I'm going to be buying some stuff from the conservative gear section later on. I need to get one of the cool T-shirts. Tell everybody where they can find all these great articles. By the way, shout out to Matt Philbin for the article about the top 10 movies showing gun violence over the weekend. Tell everybody where they can find all this great information and where they can find out more about the MRC, Newsbusters, and even you if you want. But, don't blame me when your Twitter starts going off.
Well, people should go to newsbusters.org. That's our blog site. It's very popular. It's a feeder site for Drudge, for Rush, for all sorts of conservative radio. If they hear stuff on the radio about the media, it often comes from us. they can go. I'm in charge of both business and culture departments. So when you go to the site, you can look on the front page or click the tab.